Phithizela bona buyaphithizela. The Mercury retrograde is not being gentle at all. Now, personally, I feel like I'm feeling it, not just a little bit. Like it is intense, it is real, and whew, whew, show of hands, who is surviving? Because I'm not sure that I am. Okay, I'm not sure that I am indeed surviving, but we're out here and we're doing the work. And today we're going to look at how all these transits really leading up over the next 2 weeks. Because what it is that when we have a new moon, is we have the moon and the sun in the same sign. So there is a harmony in the sky. There is that intention that is very tangible. You know, it's a beautiful time to start new things. It's a beautiful time to see into the future, to look into things. And it's very, very easy to misunderstand the new moon because the sky is darkest when the moon is new. So we don't actually even see that, crescent in the sky. There's nothing. It is just a dark sky when the moon is new. Unlike when the moon is full and it's illuminated, and we might imagine that that is the time to set intentions. It's actually not. When you want to set intentions is now. When the moon is new, and that's going to be this week on Thursday, the 24th of July, 2025. And what is going to be happening is we're going to have the sun and the moon both in the sign of Leo. Now, Leo is the superstar, the main attraction, the that girl of the zodiac, right? If you have Leo in your first house, a Leo rising is very famously somebody who has, like windscreen ya dumela, your curb appeal, the way you look is something that is very it tends to be very regal, tends to be, very inviting to people, That's like Leo energy. It owns its power. It does not shrink away from what it is. Now, it's a beautiful time to set intentions that are bold, that are audacious, that are something that might even scare you a little, right? But now remember that you are threading the eye of the needle here with the Mercury retrograde ongoing since this past Friday, also in Leo. And just a few days after, Leo, hey, hey, just a few days after this new moon, we're going to see Mercury Kazimi in Leo. So when we see a Kazimi, what is happening is that that planet is in the heart of the sun. So the energy that we are experiencing is almost intensified, crystallized, and we're really, really getting that vibe of like this is that. And we're going to be having the sun and the moon in the moon will have moved on, but we're going to have the sun and Mercury both in Leo, but conjoined, amplifying the energy of the Mercury retrograde on the last day of the month, on the 31st. Let's be mindful of this. Let's be mindful of this as we move through this. We spoke about this in the retrograde reading, but just in case you didn't catch it, let's reiterate it. This Mercury retrograding in Leo is one in which, as much as you may feel that you want to talk about things, do not talk about anything that is not materialized. evil eye is so high in the sky right now. You want to allow yourself to fall back where you need to fall back and allow for things to materialize before you claim them. Yo! Give your life the opportunity to show you what it can do, right? Yours is to use that audacity and use that um, almost tangibly like heightened confidence that the sun in Leo is bringing, right? Use that to manifest, to show up in in your life for the goals, for the desires that you hold, because things are very possible right now, especially because we're going into that Lions Gate, right? But before we get there, yo, what we're going to be doing is navigating these waters. You understand? So now, yo, so now, as we navigate these waters, these opportunities that present themselves with the new moon to set these bold intentions, let's keep to ourselves what is still up in the air, what we're still trying to figure out. Let's hold things sacred. Let's not just be telling our business to people because it is tricky. Because when people are experiencing this retrograde, almost reviewing themselves, looking at, remember that retrogrades have that theme of review, reconsideration, remembering, all of this, right? So when someone who perhaps isn't doing the work, isn't conscious of the passing transits and how they affect us, sometimes when a person is in that position and they're looking outward, um, they're not going to be very happy, for somebody else. And I mean, sikhuluma ngezinto zokungomalana, we do speak about, matters of spirituality, and the reality is that the evil eye is a real thing. So, not shrink yourself. This is not that. If there is something to be celebrated, celebrate it. But don't celebrate, I'm going to sign the contract. You'll end up not signing the contract because that weather outside is what it is. Celebrate that the contract has been signed. You understand? And don't let that be made smaller than what it is. Let things be what they are, right? Do not be afraid in that way. Now, this is where we are on the 31st of July, right? Kazimi, Mercury in Leo, with the sun in Leo. Then, when we actually enter the Lion's Gate on the 8th of August, it is tense times. I have been saying for a really long time that what is happening today and the influence of the next few days, Virgo conjoining the South, Mars conjoining the South Node in Virgo, which means the things that we look back on, the things that are foundational to us, under the effect of Virgo, the Virgin, but not just the Virgin, the record keeper, the also Mercurial, right, ruled by Mercury, which is currently retrograde, which is again review, right, and Mars, action, tangible action that brings measurable results, right? So this moment is asking us to get our house in order because Mars is going to leave Virgo. Mars is a very fast moving planet. We call this a personal planet. So the planets that we're seeing a lot of action with at the moment, the moon, the sun, Mercury, Mars. These are all very personal planets. These are the planets we see movement in frequently. They move through the signs the fastest, right? Then there's those other planets that are more generational planets that move through slower. And we'll come to those because they do have some action uh, when we hit the Lion's Gate. Now, Mars is going to leave Virgo and go into Libra. Mars is not happy in Libra because Libra is a decision maker and a very slow decision maker, one that needs to weigh up a lot of different things in their consideration. And Mars is an action planet. So it is in its fall in Libra. This is not a happy placement for Mars. If you have Mars in Libra, um, I definitely do. That's my natal placement. Honestly, it takes you so long to get to the point of frustration. It is wonderful in the sense that you might be a more diplomatic person. You might have a more diplomatic approach to things. But what is happening when Mars moves into Libra, right, while it's still in the first degree of Libra, is that it is going to oppose a retrograde Saturn in Aries on the 8th of August, day one of the Lion's Gate. Then the next day, we're going to have Mars in Libra opposing Neptune, also in the first degree of Aries. So now Saturn is the things that it governs work, discipline, right? Purpose, how we show up in the world, things that we are prepared to do. Neptune, dreamer, right? So our dream space as well as the dreams we hold for our lives. Now, when Mars is opposing them in Libra and they are making reconsiderations about their movements in Aries. So I'm asking myself questions about, am I prepared to do the work it takes for the things I want, right? And I, when when Saturn and Neptune are in Aries, or when any planet is in Aries, there is a pace, a speed, a hastiness, right? That Aries itself has. Aries is the youngest fire sign, so it is extremely combustible, right? And interestingly enough, Aries is ruled by Mars. So Mars is going to be opposing its natal home. It's a very uncomfortable time. Big decisions, serious decisions need to be made. We're going to be making considerations that we may not even have realized were coming up for us in the future. Things that um, will likely be something new in some way, because again, um, Neptune in Aries is a very slow moving generational planet, um, and is in its most revolutionary station. We have seen historically revolutions take place in this placement. So when we see the planet Neptune passing through the sign of Aries, the part of the sky known as Aries, we see revolution here on Earth. Right now it's moving backwards. So it is retrograde. So we are asking what needs to change, right? Something needs to change, but what is it? And Mars in Libra is saying, weigh up all of your decisions. Like, and it's not an easy thing to do when you don't have all of the information required. And what we've been encouraging really since the solstice, so for the last month at least, we have been saying this is the time to be doing your journaling. This is the time. Join us doing the shadow work. Join us doing pivoting into purpose, where we do our guided meditations with our ancestors and get that perspective from our higher selves. And then on the other side, also access our subconscious for the fears that might be guided, like, guarding. the gates of our desires, right? So what we want is to move all that out of the way so we can see things for what they really are, so that we're not saying, um, you know, making decisions based on information that may not be the best of what it needs to be, right? This is the time right now to be sitting with ourselves and making those considerations when Virgo's meticulous energy is there and we're basing it on past events, when we're evaluating where we stand about these things that Saturn and Neptune retrograde are making us reconsider. We're journaling and we're looking, and it's like we've got a point of reference. We are going to be looking at the past in order to gauge what comes in the future. That's just how historically decisions are made, right? Because we see what happened. If this has happened, then that must follow, right? Or if this has happened in the past, perhaps a mitigating factor that needs to be considered for future would be this or that or the other thing. And these are the things, this is the information that we're going to want to have on hand when we enter that Lion's Gate. Because what happens then with the Lion's Gate is this incredible window of opportunity. And the thing about the Lion's Gate is it is an astrological event where um, the planet Sirius, planet Earth, and Orion's belt go into alignment. And every 52 and a half years, the moon of Sirius, which we call Sirius B, also joins that alignment. And historically, for millennia, the people of West Africa, the Dogon people, have celebrated that particular event because that represents the new year on Sirius A, which is, according to the African creation story, where it is human life on Earth originates from. That is our home star, our home planet. And we are here for this unique human experience that happens in our conscious material experience, but because everything on Earth is so fast moving and has such an interesting relation to other things in the multiverse around us, there is an opportunity to cycle through karma and cycle through perspectives of self from here, multiple lifetimes and parallels concurrently, right? And that is why we do the inner work. That is why we do the work of observing ourselves and seeking out who and what we are beyond what we're seeing here, G, right? And that's why we offer the resources that we offer in terms of the courses that are available to you through Sangoma Society. And that includes our free course, Answers from Our Ancestors, which has now converted into an email course that will be beginning very shortly. Um, and it is mostly a journaling course. And the reason that we have this is because so much of what we're going through as Black people on the continent and in the diaspora relates to returning to our understanding of what spirituality is. And that is happening in a socio-economic context that needs to be taken into consideration with what it is that is driving this need to reconnect in this way with what is innately our ancient beliefs, right? Indigenous spirituality. And when we're doing this, there tends to be a trend of we come to African spirituality, we come to the ancestral as an end, last resort, right? We've tried everything else and nothing else is working and things are falling apart. It need not be that. Um, there is a way to navigate this in such a manner that it is not happening to you, in such a manner that you arrive to it consciously and intentionally and say, okay, let's see what this is, you know, beyond the fear of, oh my God, do I have to twasa? Oh my God, is it witchcraft? Oh my God, do you know that white supremacy, that capitalist hetero kiriarchy has given us a lens as for what we are, right? In our blackness and in our being, as spiritual beings, to demystify that for ourselves, to interrogate it, to interrogate the politic, our personal politic, and to give space to what it is that you are afraid of. Because I think so many of us are afraid. And we're afraid to say that we're afraid because we feel as though to say that I'm afraid is a betrayal of what we know is somehow sacred, but we don't want to disrespect it. And we make a lot of stories, and those stories keep us from the truth of what it is. And sometimes all that's required is to have a conversation with God wherein we can say, listen, maybe I'm a little pissed off, hey? I've lived half a century or I've lived a quarter century, and this is the first that I'm hearing of any of this. Why now? You get me? Like there's a need to have that conversation and to have it honestly and to have it before things are falling apart and we need to do things to take to put out that fire. Let's move through our spirituality within our agency and let's conscientize ourselves to what it is that informs the perspectives that we have of ourselves as spiritual beings and our spiritual experience as Black Africans, right? And doesn't mean Uti now, hey, you're going to have a spiritual practice. Hey, you're actually now going to start venerating your ancestors. No, you're curious. Indulge your curiosity, answer your questions, like for yourself. Give yourself the respect of interrogating what is informing your perspective. All right. This live will be available on our YouTube channel, and in the description there I will update all the information of where you can sign up for all of our resources, including answers from our ancestors, including pivoting into purpose. Again, in the 6 weeks following the Lionsgate, we are going to be having the African New Year, and that is a time when, again, massive intentions. So, again, the encouragement to do the work right now. If you say, I don't have the data to engage with the videos on answers from our ancestors, walk down to the spaza shop, get yourself an A5 book if you don't have a journal. That A5 book that's got the black cover on the outside, just get that, Mtarabao, and start journaling, right? Start observing yourself in that way. If you do have the means to get data to be on Wi-Fi, do answers from our ancestors. If you have the means to sign up for pivoting into purpose, do that, right? If you have the means to sign up for clearing into consciousness, do that. But give yourself the tools to transit through this experience. Um, for some people, it is difficult to do this on your own. And if you have the means to speak to someone, right? But please find a way to document this experience because what is happening in the second half of the year, especially, is we're having really historical transits in terms of astrological events, right? And when these things are happening, under the light of retrograde. So, say, for instance, here we have the Saturn retrograde happening in Aries. It's going to leave Aries at some point and go back to Pisces where it used to be. And when that happens, we're going to get a little bit of breathing room where things almost feel the way that they felt for the last 3 years in some aspect. But it's just to catch your breath so that when it goes back into Aries, you've got the notes of what was happening when Saturn was in Aries, what was happening when Saturn went retrograde, and then you know that, okay, it was affecting me in this way. So when it now moves back into Aries in the future, I need to have this aspect of my inner world sorted out so that I can show up in the world in the way that I want to, right? And we make these considerations as members of a broader community because I am because you are, right? You are because of the next person. The next person might not be doing the work, but if you are doing the work, you can show up in a way that shifts the conversation, that shifts the the nature of the interactions that you're having. I can admit, honestly, I think this Mercury retrograde has been whacking me. Okay? Sometimes all the preparation in the world can't help you. And maybe just remembering that there are certain difficult transits that we are under at this time can bring you back to a place of self compassion, if nothing else. If nothing else. Call home compassion. Give yourself grace for the things that you are experiencing within yourself at this time. Find ways to hold a little space for yourself. Take a little walk now and then. Write about it. Record a voice memo if there's nobody to speak to. You know, pray, light that candle, and send up that prayer. If you have done all the required things and you have informal yokuthi ukhanyise impepho, khanyisa impepho, ubize abadala, ukhulume nabo, uyishiye nabo. Because other things are above us, eh? Some things require our surrender. Sometimes you're getting whacked because it's not in your hands. And you actually need to find your humility and your surrender and the acceptance that you are but a speck of dust on a piece of rock flying through the multiverse, but a speck of dust that is so capable of doing such incredible things. Because here you are with this incredible purpose vested in you by the highest iteration of your soul, your ancestors, and your creator. We hope that what we've given in this conversation today is something that has watered your garden, the garden of your intentions, if nothing else. Remember, Mercury retrograde in Leo. Let's keep it numb. Let's keep our mouths shut as much as we can. It's tense. Um, but let's be audacious in the things that we do try for. And try for them in material ways, in tangible ways, not ngomlo. And yet, okay, I'm glad that we understand each other. I hope that we understand each other. It has, as always, been a privilege to be in your presence. Mina nginguMakhosi Nomabutho. This is Sangoma Society, where we demystify the astral and the ancestral. Until next time, Ukai Makhosi. You! Yee!